Archbishop Justin Welby అల్పసమయత్నగం కొచ్చి విమానతావళం
ఇంగ్లాండ్కు చెందిన జస్టిక్ వెల్బీ దంపతులు సందర్శించారు. ఎస్ఐ మెదక్ డయాసిస్ బిషప్ సాల్మన్ రాజ్ ఆధ్వర్యంలో
We come from dioceses that cover about 165 countries. The total number of states in the world is about 197. So we cover almost every country on earth.
You meet Jesus in the stranger. You meet Jesus in the person you don't know. And unless you're ever flexible for whoever may knock on the door, or whatever conversation, to be fully present to that person, that is Caroline.
Before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord.
For Justin and Caroline, hospitality is everything in terms of it's from the moment you arrive at the gatehouse, your first interaction, how the conversation is as you cross through the courtyard, being welcomed, being embraced.
Well, no, it's not part of
Caroline and Archbishop Justin have been extremely generous in wanting to share their garden with other people. Different charities come in on a different open day and sort of host a whole day of fundraising here for that charity.
And they try to lead quite a sort of Benedictine rule with their hospitality. And the sort of mantra of the hospitality team is, you know, treat every guest as if they were Christ themselves. It's humble, it's modest, but it's genuine and true and caring. It's about valuing the people.
To not stand on hierarchy, to make a point of taking off all the roles, all the things that set me apart from somebody else, and visibly removing them, and then sitting with anybody, not creating ranks of the most important or the most senior or the people who can speak English or whatever. Just so all of that, to my mind, is hospitality. How you set out a room is hospitality. How you include, how you listen, all of that is hospitality. And it's very interesting if you look at the story of Martha and Mary. I mean, there are just so many, but that's very interesting because there's a tussle there. What does hospitality look like? But I suppose hospitality is both those things. It's the focusing, it's the listening, it's the loving, it's the learning as well as the doing. So although I sympathise with Martha, I'm not hung up on having to get everything perfect before we have people into the home. I came from a small family, very happy, very uneventful childhood, but there wasn't really relationship with God. There wasn't an understanding that Jesus could be a personal friend. And it's only when I was about to go to university that everything came together. I felt it was now or never. If I didn't become a Christian, then that was going to be it. And it wasn't because I understood what Jesus had done for me. It wasn't because I felt a huge weight of sin. It's because I knew that if I became a Christian, I would have somebody who was in charge of my life who would never leave me. The person who led the Bible study had sensed that this was the moment, and he led me through a prayer. And I can remember I was so desperate, screwing my eyes up and just saying, I can't be good. I'm going to try, but I can't be good. Please help me. And of course, as soon as the prayer had finished, it was explained to me that God had entered into a covenant with me, that whether or not I was able to do the things I felt I should do, he did not go back on his promises. And so it was an extraordinary, it was literally like scales falling from the eyes. So that was the beginning, at the age of 18, I suppose. And off I went to Cambridge, and I met my husband 10 days later, and the rest is history. It is hard to know what attracted me to Justin, really. He's a very open person. He's very curious. He asks questions and he makes statements. He doesn't leave things unsaid. So we married in 1979, and we lived in Paris. Our daughter Joanna was born in 1982, and when she was 6 months old, we came back to the UK. And on our way, Justin wasn't there. I was there with a friend, and we had a car accident, and she died 5 days later. It was unexpected, it was unnecessary, it was one of those things that shouldn't have happened and did happen, and it was irreversible. And it was very, very difficult. Fast forward a few years, and my husband became Bishop of Durham, and it became clear that it was right for Justin to go to Durham. It was also right for me and my children to stay in Liverpool. And so we would go to Durham at the weekends, and we were based in Liverpool for the remaining time that they were at school. So I was stuck in Liverpool, and I wrote to the director of the local Ignatian Jesuit retreat house. I said I was looking for a spiritual director, and at some point I would like to do the Ignatian exercises. And we decided it in the summer, and by the time I started in September, my husband had been asked to submit his papers for the Archbishop of Canterbury. He had been shortlisted, and just after I started the exercises, he was interviewed, and a month later he was appointed.
I, Robert Andrew Willis, Dean of Canterbury, by the authority committed to me, install you, Most Reverend Father in God, Justin, by divine providence, Archbishop of Canterbury, Primate of all England and Metropolitan, in this chair of St. Augustine.
I was in the first week, and then immersed in the Annunciation and the Nativity story. And what came out of that was very much the sense that the Church calls the Archbishop of Canterbury And the church is not interested in the family and the household of the Archbishop of Canterbury. Absolutely not. But God is. And that in his economy, in the same way that he chose Mary to be the bearer of his child, but he also chose Joseph, that God chose my husband to be the Archbishop of Canterbury, but he also chose me for who I was. It was transformatory in terms of how I saw the role of the spouse of the Archbishop of Canterbury, who, as a clergy spouse and as a bishop's spouse, I was always on the what should I do? Who should I be? I was comparing myself with others. I was trying to be sometimes what I was not. Suddenly I had permission from God to be me.
You know, I saw her re-navigate her role when Justin became Archbishop of Canterbury. She realised, or she discerned, God's call to her down at Lambeth Palace and in Canterbury as well. Moved the family, which wasn't easy. She travelled with Archbishop Justin all around the communion. You know, they were away from home 3 weeks out of 4 for that first 2 years, almost. That's where she discovered the importance and the vision for working with bishop spouses.
Encouraging them and perhaps maybe just equip them a little bit for the roles that they play.
I think some of the challenges that personally I face as a bishop's wife is it is still like a position of privilege, but I see that bishops' wives, including myself, sometimes we find ourselves lonely because sometimes people would be like, want to go through somebody to come to us, and yet we want to reach out to these people or the women who do want to come to us. And so we find ourselves like we don't have that space to really reach out to our fellow women or the fellow bishops' spouses. And so that is the challenge that in our visits we also find with the bishops' wives.
As bishops and spouses around the Anglican communion, coming together here to celebrate the love of Christ, I really felt that I was not alone, felt I was connected to a wider global church or the family of God church in a wider community.
So not in Western nations where the spouses are often highly educated, have their own professional roles, their own careers, but I mean, I know best the African context, where when the husband is elected bishop, suddenly, without her choosing, the wife is appointed to be president of the Mothers' Union, is expected to travel with her husband everywhere, never mind if she has children, never mind if she has any other work, and expected to be a speaker, a teacher, you know, gathering. When Mothers' Union meet, there could be thousands of people, and she's expected to sort of hold the conference, which is exactly what Caroline did, of course, at the Lambeth conference 18 months ago, brilliantly. But I don't think Caroline would have imagined herself doing that, you know, 12 or 15 years ago.
You know, and she would take to the stage and she uses her voice and her experience to not only connect with the other spouses, but she knows that that can be an instrument for the greater good, in a sense, for improving the quality of everybody's ministry and lives, and also the valuable role that, in most cases, the spouses play in supporting their partner, their spouse, the bishop.
As we hold this space carefully and lovingly for one another, we remember that we are first and foremost not bishop spouses, not people with a job to do, but first and foremost, beloved children of God. And that as we share and listen, we are in the company of the one who knows all and who is over all.
The spouse of the bishop is automatically the president of the Mothers' Union.
Mothers' Union is a movement of women in the church, and they have objectives to nurture young families and young Christian women.
And they are expected to take a prominent role. Some of them are not prepared for this role, and I think in some of the conversation, she then found out the need for undertaking a ministry, supporting the spouses through workshops, through seminars, through a time when they can be listened to. So therefore, that's part of what the Women on the Frontline does, supporting the spouses of bishops and the archbishops in that matter in their ministry.
So when we go to a province to spend time with bishop spouses, we're doing two things, where we're trying to give them an opportunity to hear from God. So we're giving them some retreat space, but we're also trying to train them, because reconciliation is one of my husband's 3 priorities. It will be in an area of reconciliation that they identify. So it's not what we choose to bring, it's what they identify as their need.
And reconciliation at grassroots level is the best, rather than waiting until things go all the way to the national level. And I think supporting ministry of reconciliation right from the grassroots up to the national level is so important. And so by empowering the spouses of bishops, the women leaders, Mothers' Union, you actually would help them then to undertake such a ministry with a lot of confidence, because they feel that they would have been empowered to undertake the ministry of reconciliation.
One of the things about women and reconciliation is that they're right at the heart of family, community, and very often they're natural peacemakers. So you're just encouraging them in what they can do. And the other thing is that I believe there have been studies about that, but you're not going to get long-lasting peace if you don't involve women.
It's a sense that for peace processes, for peace to happen, the involvement of women is critical. That they can mobilise one another, they can work in a dynamically relational way that is thinking through the needs of the community, their family, and the sense that women can come together, sometimes across different divides, sometimes because they aren't necessarily confined to some of the institutional structures that others might be, and they're able to cross some of those divides and meet in a way that's really recognising the need, and therefore mobilise together to push for peace, to protest for peace, to pray for peace, to petition for peace, sometimes to campaign for peace. And that's just an incredible role. That there are lots of stories of women really at the front line pursuing peace in that way where they can come together.
In lots of cultures, you know, the women won't speak in front of men. So how do you get them to a position of being able to be at the table when it comes to peacemaking and reconciliation nationally? So you need to do somehow 2 things at the same time, which is really hard. Sort of increase their confidence and give them some equipping. And that quite often if you have a group of bishops around a table, male bishops, and you talk about women in any context, you could just watch they take a little break while it's being talked about.
We visit different provinces across the Anglican Communion, and the issues that we hear are different, from conflict to sometimes issues of gender-based violence as well. And when you look at conflict situations, most of those who are affected are women. And so how can women leaders and bishops' wives be reconcilers in context of conflicts like that and encourage other mothers and women who are fleeing conflict?
I mean, it's very interesting in South Sudan at the moment, this sort of growing, I think, dissatisfaction among women. You know, that in itself, if it can be galvanized, would be the thing that would have most effect in toppling, you know, these people in power who are just keen on holding power and staying there. So they are essential women, really.
They are there, but usually their voices are not heard, and so we are praying that women on the front line can be able to amplify the voice of the women and empower them, equip them to be enablers of peace in the communities that they serve and across the Anglican Communion, and why not all over the world, and make the world a peaceful place for everyone.
So what we've taken to doing is what we call testimony in paint. And they get a chance to share their story, but because they're sharing a painting, it's easier for most of them to do that because they're not talking about themselves, they're talking about themselves through the medium of the painting. And sometimes we just use art to have fun. I can remember a time in Burundi where we were using clay and just making whatever came to mind, and there was great laughter as people produce things. But it doesn't need to be art. It could be anything. It could be more role play. We often have role play and drama, but it could be storytelling.
You know, we are not all the same, but when we dramatize, like the sessions that we have, you will find those who are quiet opening up, and then you wonder, oh, she has a potential in drama. Instead of using a drama on the prodigal son, we use the drama, the prodigal daughter, and that sticks into their minds. God has called them, and God knows them as they are. And personally, I think I also believe God has known me, and He has called me as I am to this ministry.
By being that support, you can influence, you can make it something. You don't have to feel, I don't know, sidelined or secondary, that actually it's a team, it's a partnership, and that both have such an important role to keep it all moving.
You know, it's a work in progress. The whole attitude to women and the work that women do and the value of women. It's not even a drop in the ocean. It's a pinprick, really, of equipping and training out of a sea of need, really.
In Genesis 2:18, the Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him."